Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, non-binary friends, my name is Matt Martin, and today we're sitting down with Charlotte's very own celebrity bad boy chef, Chris Coleman. We're about to get the crazy hot takes. We're about to get a lot of update and information on how things have been right now, and just check in with one of our friends. How you doing, Chef?
I'm great, Matt. How are you?
I'm good, man.
Or celebrity chef Matt Martin, as I like to say.
So one of the biggest inside jokes going around Charlotte right now, we'll let everybody know about, is anytime I see Chris out in public, I yell out my car as loud as I can, "Is that celebrity chef Chris Coleman?" And I'm never gonna stop doing it. He lives very close to where I live, and it makes me laugh every single time. So what's gonna happen?
Right.
Oh man, what was it? Was it crazy? Like when you went on Chopped again? Was it I read a little bit about your experience and I saw it obviously, but
yeah, I mean, Chopped is fun. I've done 3 things with them now, and it's a really, really cool experience. It's a lot of fun. Obviously, the first time was the most fun because that's the one that I won. They got kind of hyped up, and that one was a lot of fun. I went back and filmed a second episode that was a Champions Tournament style episode that we didn't really hype up because I really screwed up and screwed the pooch and got chopped the first round. So we didn't really talk about that one too much. And then just recently I flew out and was a stand-in for a larger Chop Champions tournament that had a bigger purse and stuff. And unfortunately, I wasn't selected to be on the show, but I was there just in case someone got sick or missed their flight and couldn't be on the show or whatever. But it's just nice for them to still recognize me like that. It's a lot of fun. I mean, it's a long day to film any TV show, but when you're actually in the kitchen, it's exactly like it looks on TV, where it's you open the basket, you pull out the ingredients, they start a clock, and you have 20 minutes or 30 minutes depending on the round, and you go. There's nothing made for TV about it. It's all just like you're cooking. So
that's awesome. I think that it's fun. I definitely agree with something that you've said, and Chopped seems to be the most realistic sort of culinary competition show that there is. So it's fun to hear that from the chef's perspective, it was how you would imagine it being done, and it's not too produced,
Right. Yeah. Other than the lag time in between rounds for them to reset everything, it's just straight through cooking. So that's so much fun.
Yeah. Well, that's the reason that I yell celebrity chef Chris Coleman whenever I see him in public. So how obviously there's no reason to avoid the white elephant that we're all dealing with currently in the room. Right. How are you doing, man? How's things been? You guys doing all right?
Yeah, we're doing okay. I mean, we're luckier than a lot of folks right now in that we're seeing a constant stream of business, and we're very thankful that people, want to come out and hang out with us and spend time with us. During the shutdown, the mandated shutdown, we shut down immediately. Like when the order came out from Governor Cooper back in March to shut down. We tried doing takeout for a few days. We figured out after about 3-4 days, we just weren't set up for it. It was not part of our business model. And honestly, we weren't ready to pivot yet. And, looking back at it now, we could have done a few things differently and probably stayed open the whole time, but we'd made the decision then to shut down. But during that shutdown and after we, unfortunately, worst day of my life, I had to lay off over 40 people. During that shutdown, we worked the whole time. Me and Sean and AJ, we're the 3 partners in the business. And we got this huge patio expansion done that added over 70 seats outside. We worked on our reopening plans. We worked on plans for concept number 2, which is funny to say out loud since concept number 1 was shut down at the time, right? But we knew we were going to come back. We knew we were going to want to come back strong and make plans for the future. We're kind of all 3 big believers in that if you put a plan in place and you have a realistic goal at the end, that you can kind of work backwards and meet that goal. So, we said going into this that we wanted to not just have one restaurant, but have multiple restaurants. So it kind of made sense to take that downtime when we didn't have to worry about guests coming through the door. We didn't have to worry about ordering,
Mhm.
getting our orders in time. We didn't have to worry about inventory to do all that stuff. We could just focus on the business instead of in the business. And that, really propelled us to be ready to open the doors when we could. So, kind of a long-winded, rambling answer to your question, and I apologize for that. But we were able to add additional 70 seats outdoors, while keeping those tables 6 feet apart, or more. So we're able to offer our guests a very socially distanced, safe, but still fun and kind of magical outdoor seating area. So, we're doing well. We're doing well.
Good. It's funny to me. I'm sure a lot of people are aware. You've been in Charlotte's food scene since Charlotte
Long
has
time.
had a very
Right.
established food scene, and I think that it's interesting to me that watching people who I think that you and I have maybe been friends now for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
Met early on through PCG, and then the Piedmont Culinary Guild, for those of you who are unaware of that acronym. And then, from there, really have created our budding friendship, I would say, in the last 2 years since I've been working with Freshlist. And even in the last 2 years, I mean, I've seen you go from being the corporate executive chef who didn't have much time throughout the day because you were taking care of so many concepts. You're overseeing all of what was happening at Oak and the whole hotel, to being who I imagine you more so are as an individual. You're very light, you're very positive. When I see you at the Goodyear House, you can have a 10-minute conversation and it's not going to put you behind schedule or ruin your day. And I feel like it's really fun because a lot of people in our town, I feel like, are still looking for the thing that is them. They're still looking to find their true voice. And I think that the more and more people have the ability to be in a space where they can find what they want to do. You want to do upscale, approachable, high quality, ingredient driven, Southern twang food, right? I mean, it's a long sentence, but I feel like that's exactly what you're trying to shoot for.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
it's funny. Go
ahead.
No, go ahead.
I just think that seeing where you came from, before, obviously all the places that you've been, and now really seeing how you're cooking and just doing service next to you during Free Soup Day at Free Range, and hearing you talk about the concept, I was like, this dude's in love. This is so awesome. Like, I can't wait to continue to see the different iterations. And I'm happy that, you guys aren't having any of the wind come out of your sails with this current situation that we're all going through, and you're still looking for the future. And it's just exciting,
Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you. But, it took a long time to kind of get where I think that I really wanted to be, and comfortable being who I am as a chef, and really putting that on the plate. Right. I started out in Charlotte's restaurant industry when I was 14, and I'm 37 now. So, so I've been here a long time, and the first 5 years of those were spent at a fish camp, frying fish and hush puppies, which I wouldn't trade for the world. But my time at Captain's Galley, it was amazing. But definitely not the epitome of Charlotte's food scene, right? So, and then kind of just navigated my way through some kitchens in town, and figure out who I am. Not so much necessarily just a chef, but who I am as a person too. I think that I'm in a spot now, just personally, where I feel like I'm being the most true to myself that I've ever been. For better or worse, it depends on who you ask and which day you ask them, I guess. But I really enjoyed my time at McNinch House. I was there for 9 years, but I was executing someone else's vision. I really enjoyed opening the Asbury and kind of assembling an A team there with Matthew Krenz and Jossie, Pearl Mutter, now Kasich at the time. And we had some other all-stars on our team, like Hector Gonzalez, who's doing his thing with Cholitos now. And
that's so crazy. The list that you just said out loud is literally insane.
Oh yeah, no, it's nuts, man. I mean, we had like literally some of the best in town, all in one kitchen. You know, and Mike Long's kind of continuing that now at Asbury. Hey, speak of the devil, look, there's Matthew Crins.
Who's this?
Oh, what's going
This
on,
is celebrity
buddy?
chef Matt Martin.
What's up, man? How are you, buddy? You doing all right?
He said, "How are you? Doing all right?"
Right,
He's
sorry.
got headphones in.
So yeah, Matt's
That's awesome.
you know, here to drop off our beef delivery. So quick cameo from Matthew Crins.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, so you know, I think I enjoyed my time there. You know, because I was able to work with a team of people that were amazing, and they taught me a lot as much as I hope that I taught them. You know, and then with like you kind of alluded to with Marriott, that helped me or pushed me to kind of wear multiple hats, right? To do a lot of things and to make sure that I could kind of build a team here, build a team there, and then just kind of work the cogs of the machine together to make sure it didn't grind to a halt. So I've kind of picked up something along the way at each of my, you know, exec spots. And
That's crazy.
McNinch's, it was attention to detail, and it was also, you know, basic fundamental kind of classical cooking. At Asbury, it was surrounding yourself with a team and not being afraid, you know, to take a step back and not be the person, you know, in the spotlight all the time. And then at Marriott, it was learning how to manage a lot of moving parts all at once, you know, which is what a chef's job is. But in that capacity, it's so much bigger and broad. So I think that I've been able to take those things that I've learned from all those spots and kind of put them into where I am now, which is, you know, I've surrounded myself with an amazing team. We're very detail focused in the food that we do, even if it doesn't look like it all the time, because there's this, you know, to steal a Dave Chang thing, there's this ugly deliciousness thing happening with a lot of our food. It's not necessarily, you know, tweezered out. There's not a lot of like intricate plating in what we do, but it's all just, you know, really, really tasty, delicious food. And then, you know, as we look to the future, it's going to be managing those different concepts again. So, yeah, you know, I've been around a while and I'm super comfortable where I am now. And I'm happy to be here.
I think what's really fun about hearing individually what you would take away from each establishment, the way that I like to sort of explain it to people who aren't in the industry, it would be like you singing a song in the car and really enjoying a part of the song. So like you really enjoy, you know, when the chorus hits and everybody is singing along, you're like, okay, I like that part. And then you hear another song and it's, you know, it's got a country twang to it and you're like, okay, I really like that. And then inevitably, you know, you work all of this together to sort of produce the type of song that you would want to sing if you were a songwriter, you know?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I feel, or you know, you're picking up from different coaches if you're a quarterback, how you want to play your game. And then to see somebody, you know, be at that position to make those calls the way that you are now at the Goodyear, I think that it's fun because you're not singing somebody else's song, like you alluded to when you're, you know, at McNinch House. You're singing your own vision, and it's going to be more authentic to you. And I think that shows a lot in the way that you've presented your food and the way that you're trying to integrate yourself into the community of NODA as well. You know, one of the beautiful things that I want to touch upon is that you've referenced to wanting to be a neighborhood spot. And when we first talked about that, I don't know if you remember, but you were telling me that you want to be a place where somebody could come in a few times a week and it wouldn't break their bank, you know, whether it just be for an appetizer or whether it be for a couple of entrees as a dinner date. And I think that, you know, your menu really exemplifies that. And, you know, even being this far along through opening and really only having 4 or 6 weeks under your belt, do you feel like that is the right decision still, you know, being that neighborhood spot, being that affordable, high quality driven place? Like you haven't seen that changing any, have you?
No, I mean, we've adjusted our menu a bit since we opened. You know, when we first opened pre-Corona times, it was a bigger menu. There was a lot more going on in terms of We had, bites, we had small plates, we had traditional sandwiches, we had kind of shared, bigger, we called them biggies. It was our nod to, we had biggies and we had smalls. It was our nod to our love of hip hop. And those were meant to be shared by, 3 to 4 people. And they were like a whole trout or a giant prime rib or something like that. And we've kind of gone away from that into more of I think a more modern kind of small plates focused restaurant. But we still do have, the Goopy Burger, the Red Devil Chicken Sandwich, which was a new addition after coming out of COVID. And we put on some more traditional style entrees as well with, a center of the plate, feature, and then a couple of garnishes or something to complement. So, but I mean, I think we've hit on what we set out to be. We've got a lot of regulars, which is really cool. It's fun to see our neighbors come in a couple times a month, and you'll see they'll come in during the week and they'll grab a burger, and then they'll come back on the weekend when they have a bit more time and they don't have to worry about getting up, so early the next morning to go to work, and they'll sit down and have a couple courses, or ordered a bunch of plates and share, pass around the table. So I think we've definitely hit where we want to be. And so it's just going to be kind of seeing how that evolution continues. You said something a minute ago about being like the quarterback of the team. And a lot of times I feel like I'm more of maybe like the head coach, where I can say, why don't we try this next? And then I sit back and watch as my quarterbacks, which are my sous chefs and our front of house managers, they really are the ones playing the game, right? So they're the ones who are, the most active day to day and are really kind of running things. Whereas I'm just kind of here to say, all right, I like this, but let's try this direction, or let's make this tweak. Let's do this, for our steps of service, or let's try this as a garnish on that dish, or I'll be the one to say, how about we do this plate? And then Tyler or Rocky will say, well, that's a great idea, chef, but what if we did this instead? So it's a much more of a teamwork kind of aesthetic, and I'm enjoying just really being here to watch it happen and have a part of it.
I think that it only works for somebody to be above you if they can adequately answer your questions. So right. I feel like when it comes to you having your sous chefs, Tyler and Rocky, if they ask you something, like, they're going to value your feedback because they understand just a few years ago you were that chef on the line. Not that you aren't now. You're working on much bigger picture things now.
Yeah. Well, we talk about that all the time. Like if one of our line cooks is having an off day and has to kind of be talked to after service by the sous chefs, it's kind of like the sous chefs say, I was where you were last year.
Right.
And chef was where I am last year. And now, chef is working on bigger things, and I'm where chef was and you're where I am. So in another year or two, you should be where I am. And that's how it works. I mean, there have been some great chefs in town who've put out some really stellar, chefs. You think about everyone who's worked for Bruce Moffett. Back in the day, you think of everyone who worked for Gene Briggs at Blue. Like it was like the A team. I joke with Mark Jacksina from time to time. He had a chance to hire me, Greg Collier, and Ben Philpott all within 6 months of each other in 2011, and just couldn't make the numbers work. But we talk all the time about, and Nick Daniels was on his team then, and Nicholas Tenarte was on his team then. So that would have been like an insane lineup. But I say all of that to just say that, that's what I want to be. I want to be mentioned in the same conversation as the Gene Briggs, as the Bruce Moffats, for turning out great chefs. That's what if I have a legacy at some point down the road, I want people to say, like, God, do you remember, think of the list of names that have worked at Goodyear House, and what they're doing now, because there's big things happening here. And I'm happy to have, everyone that's on my team with me now, I don't expect them to be with me, or at least the same team in 5 years, just because that's the nature of the business. And,
Yeah.
and I want everyone to excel, and I want everyone to learn while they're here and then go out and do things better than I ever did them. So,
yeah. Well, I think that leads me to one question that I was actually really curious about to hear your perspective is, we are in a demographic of chefs who are leaving a really terrible part of our industry behind us. We are
right.
cognitive. We are focused on making things better. We are more focused on picking each other up than we are using each other as a stepping stool to get above.
Right.
And as you, produce these intentional workers that you're going to have out of your kitchens, what do you look forward to when it comes to the next generation of chefs? Like, what do you look forward to thinking about the issues that Rocky and Tyler in their legacy will be able to work on? How we are working toward making everybody rise up at once. What do you think will be the things that they do, whether they're with you or when they leave, for the industry?
Yeah, I think, we can see it happening now, right? We're at this cusp of a wave right now that I don't really ever see crashing. I hope to see it just continue, to push and rise and swell. But, just today, as we're recording this podcast, right, which is the 17th of November, Greg and Sabrina's spot was landed number 2 on Esquire's best new restaurants list in the country. And that's amazing. And they did it for being, a reference point to what you said earlier, who they are. They're cooking who they are and who they want to be. And they are actively promoting diversity, and they're actively pushing to hire, young people of color who happen to work in our industry. So, I see that continuing to happen. I see kitchens being a much more diverse place. I see kitchens being a much more inclusive and welcoming place. One thing that we talk about all the time at Goodyear House is that we want to break the traditional restaurant culture. We want people to have time off, to go to a wedding, to, have a Friendsgiving. I've got a chef asking off on Sunday for a Friendsgiving. I'm like, normally in the traditional restaurant, I'd be like, no, you're my Sunday plancha guy. You have to
Right.
work. Like, that's just what your role is, man. You're off the next day. I have Friendsgiving on Monday. And I'm like, no, I want to take Saturdays and Sundays off occasionally. I'm off every Sunday, but I want to take Saturdays, have that as a half day so I can go to my son's baseball game. Is it fair for me to tell my line cooks, no, you can't have off this Sunday to go to your Friendsgiving, as I walk out the door with my keys in my hand? Like, that's just messed up. Right. So,
Yeah.
We want that focus, to be on work while they're here, but also be respectful of the fact that you have a life outside of the restaurant. And, you should be working to supplement that life, not living to be fully devoted to work. So I think that you've got chefs who are speaking out about that kind of work-life balance. I think that with chefs that are pushing for diverse kitchens and accepting and rewarding kitchens, I'm excited by what a kitchen, could look like in 10 years, 15 years. I think I don't want to say will look like, because we have a lot of work to do. We have, not to get too political here, but if the results of the last election are any indication, we have a long way to go as a country in working towards inclusion and diversity and celebrating everyone. We will get there, but we have to continue to push to get there. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but I think there's some bright things ahead for the future of restaurant culture.
Yeah, I think that they are too. And I mean, even to just think about two of us being able to have space to have that conversation together now, I mean, just speaks volumes to the progress that we have made, Yeah,
well, the fact that two white guys, are having that conversation, doesn't speak volumes. But I'm excited. I wish we had, I guess someone else to share their side of the story on this call, but, we've got so much happening in the industry right now. And I think that it's really cool to be a witness and be kind of a part of it at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have a few other questions that I feel like you've touched on a little bit.
Sure.
But I wanted to ask your position on when I feel like everybody came out of the first close down, we really saw most people going towards more of a comfort food menu. We saw people doing
Right.
to-goes that were more family oriented. And I kind of feel like, looking over your guys' menu, that like, that was your sweet spot already.
Right.
So, yeah, that's not to highlight what you were doing.
Right.
Not to downplay it whatsoever. And I think that I wanted to know when that period was happening. I know that you said that you weren't really set up for to-goes, but what were the comfort dishes that you all have that you saw most people, going for?
Yeah. So, I think, one thing we developed during quarantine as well was the scratch house chicken concept, which was kind of a quick goes concept that we were operating out of the Goodyear House Kitchen. And it was built around chicken sandwiches. And you think about all the other chicken sandwiches in the market right now, there's a lot of them, but this was the same year that Bossy Beulah's opened, and they have, probably the best chicken sandwich in town. So we were looking at that as something that we could execute very well, something that had relatively low margins, so we can make a little bit of money off of it, because we're a business at the end of the day. And what we discovered through all of this is that we're not set up to do a ghost kitchen and Goodyear at the same time, but the Red Devil chicken sandwich was developed, and we put that on our Goodyear menu when we came back. It was just like a fried chicken sandwich dipped in a hot sauce. It's a little sweet, a little sour. It's real tasty, and that's still on our menu, and it's still in our top 5 every week for sales. So, we burgers, sandwiches, those are the things that have really taken off. But we're also, the minute we reopened, we put this smoked half chicken on the menu with butter beans and Tyler's grandmother's chow chow, and a white barbecue sauce that we serve with a wedge of cornbread. So it's super comfort food, right? I just named like everything on earth that could be comfort food in one dish. And that's still a staff favorite, and it's still a guest favorite. We sell a ton of we call it the winter because it's a winter chicken dinner.
Love it.
We sell a lot of winter winners every week. And I think that it's so, I can't think of the word now, but it just defines kind of who we are. The butter beans are something that I hated growing up and absolutely adore now. And we braise those in a mushroom and miso stock, because we're always sneaking, something Japanese, Korean, or Vietnamese in every single dish that we do, just about. We're smoking those chickens, just over wood. There's no gas used at all, in an outside old school drum smoker, like you would see at a backyard barbecue. We're covering that in a super kind of vinegar forward, white barbecue sauce. It's Tyler's grandmother's chow chow recipe that's been passed down for like 5 generations. It's heirloom corn meal from Marsh Hen Mill, used to be Geechee Boy. It's their Jimmy Red.
Nice.
That we're making cornbread with. And it's just everything in that dish speaks to who we are and where we came from. As a kitchen, when you look at me, Tyler, and Rocky, and our backgrounds, and it kind of also, it just works, and it, people have just really reacted to it. There's this whole, kind of guttural reaction when you've got something that reminds you of something that you've had before, but not had that same way. You know, it's like that scene in Ratatouille, right, where he eats the ratatouille and drops the fork, and I think that we feel that same way with that dish in particular. So.
I think that what's really fun from the outsider perspective, not the industry focused people that we are, is if a regular dining room customer sees that, they might look at it and think this is rudimentary, like this is simple.
Right.
This is what my mom would have done for Sunday supper. But then, like you were saying,
right.
They take those first bites and they're like, this ain't how mom did it. Like,
yeah. I mean, there's just something a little different in every single thing that we're doing, and the way it's been put together. It's just a little different. And, you know, our inspiration for Goodyear House, for the style of food we do, is that we said from the very beginning was, what if your grandmother or your mom went to culinary school?
right.
What would Sunday dinner have looked like then? Right? Like, maybe she's not a chef. She just went to culinary school. What would she have served you for Sunday dinner? And that's kind of what we want to do. So we're not looking to reinvent the wheel. We're just looking to make really, really tasty food that's very ingredient driven. You know, a lot of times, especially like our vegetable dishes, will just be literally the vegetable, maybe a sauce, but maybe a marinade or a vinaigrette and something crunchy. I mean, we like to scatter crunchy stuff all over everything. So for texture, and that's it. Like, we're not, you know, no slam at the chefs around town who are doing things differently, but we're not looking to do, you know, broccoli 5 ways. We're looking to do like really good grilled broccoli with an awesome like cheddar cheese sauce that everyone loves. It's got a little bit of red miso in there because, again, that Japanese bent that we've got, and it's got like a chili oil on top, and that's, you know, kind of like a nod to a chili crisp. So it's just simple. It's just tasty. It's just really, really good food.
Well, I think that that speaks volumes, because sometimes, you know, you can hide behind doing a lot of components on a dish. Like, if for our more modern focus, you know, people who are going to hear this, you know, if something is prepared in various ways, or if something has, you know, a lot going on in it, it's easy to hide behind one or two of those things not tasting good. But if you have a dish that's 3 ingredients, it's grilled broccoli, it's sauce, and it's chili oil, all of those things have to be done perfect, or people are going to be like, this food's a joke.
Yeah, no, and that's, I mean, I don't want what I said to be misconstrued as a dig at anybody, because that's not the way I meant it. If you're doing something that is as progressive as, you know, a vegetable a bunch of different ways, you're right. There can be a bit of like parlor tricks. There can be a bit of magic where you can kind of say like that component was amazing. These components didn't really need to be there, but these 3 components were insane. I think that you're putting a little bit more pressure on your kitchen when you have things done like, you know, 5 different ways or 8 different ways or 73 different ways, whatever, because I think that you have those people who are really into food who will say like, you should have left off some of these, or you really needed to tighten up some of this. And for us, we're not, you know, for us, it's just like, here's the dish. It's really simple. We hope you enjoy it. You know, I mean, we like to eat this. We're making food right now that we would want to eat every single day. And there's a time and a place for super fancy tweezered out food. And there's a time and a place more often than not for just like some really good whatever in a bowl with a sauce and some kind of texture that you can just kind of dig into. And that's what we're all about.
I love it. So I have my one sort of big question, I guess.
Sure.
You know, and then we'll do a few like speed rounds of the like fun things, and then we'll call it a day. So I personally am under the impression, and I was listening to a different podcast that you were on, and you were talking about how there's a disparity between casual dining, this nebulous that's the middle, and then fine dining in Charlotte's culinary scene. And I'm curious if what your thoughts are post-COVID if we'll see a lot more of this mid-tier, you know, very good, very ingredient focused establishments sort of come out as a catalyst, because, you know, your other spectrum of fine dining might be hit a little bit less, you know, just due to economic times and everything like that. Not because of the quality of what these people are doing, but because of the world in which that we're in. So do you see this pandemic being a catalyst for Charlotte food scene to shine in a different way? You know, let's think of the positives of what can come out of this, and like, that's not to downplay the negatives. It's just, let's focus on some things that are
Sure.
positive, you know?
Yeah, so I think we've already seen that start to happen. I think that I might have made that, you know, that quote or made that comment a couple of years ago. And I think that in the last 4 or 5 years, probably, we've seen more of that middle road start to shrink a bit, where there is more casual restaurants that are kind of raising their bar, and more fine dining restaurants that are more like not lowering their bar, but they're kind of expanding. They're trickling down a smidge. So you've got someone like Joe Kindred, who opens a Hello Sailor, right? And that's like, it's not casual by any means, but it's definitely not fine dining. I wouldn't really call Kindred fine dining personally, but I know a lot of like the normal non-foodie, non-chef industry people would consider Kindred finer dining. So you got someone like him who went off and said, I'm going to do my ode to a fish camp. And he started frying popcorn shrimp, and that menu, since they opened, has started to creep up a smidge in its elegance. Not a lot. I mean, you know, you're still eating out of like, you know, wooden bowls, and the servers are like those cheap wooden bowls, and the servers are still wearing like Hawaiian shirts and stuff and having fun with it. But it's elevated a smidge above casual. And if you look at like what Greg has done at Lee and Louise, like nothing on his menu, I think, is above $20. I mean, it's all, you know, it's all extremely innovative. It's all really fun. The flavors are solid. And, you know, he's having fun, and you can go there and not feel like you have to drop, you know, $200 on dinner. I think with what, you know, obviously what we have accomplished or hope to accomplish here at Goodyear, we've done the same thing, where it's just really solid food that's, you can bring your family in, and again, walk out spending less than $100 and have had a great meal. And that's, you know, that's the hope. You've got other chefs around town who are starting to do the same type of thing, right? Michael Knoll has super progressive bardo, which I would never take my kids to in a million years, to now he's opened Vana, and I haven't been there yet. I'm waiting for all, you know, COVID to kind of die down a smidge. But, you know, I can't wait to go in there. I think that he's done some fun stuff that would appeal to families. So I think there's, it's already started happening in Charlotte, where, again, just that kind of middle of the road, where it's not casual and it's not fine dining, somewhere in between, has already started to happen. And I see a lot more restaurateurs opening that middle of the road spot and not opening that fine dining spot, when maybe 5 years ago they would have totally gone fine dining. And now they're like, well, let's loosen up a bit. Let's unbutton the top button. Let's have a bit more fun. And let's, you know, serve a wider variety and a wider demographic of guests. Because again, we talk a lot about the art and the craftsmanship of culinary. We rarely talk about the business side of culinary. And, you know, at the end of the day, this is a business, and this is something that has to make money, or we can't continue to do it. So as artful and as creative and as innovative as we want to be, we also have to make sure that we're paying bills. So, you know, there's a lot more folks who will go out to eat if they know that they can get a great meal at that $20 price point instead of that $40 price point. So,
yeah, I think that I agree with that. And I think that the more that you see these middle establishments, like you're saying, sort of open up around town, I think that speaks volumes to a lot of people who are using delivery services. It speaks volumes to people that do just like eating nice food at their house, and that high, super fine dining level food doesn't translate well to a to-go container. where if I take a quart, of your mac and cheese home, which I plan to do this evening, it's gonna transfer very well to the dish that I'm gonna make when I get home, and sort of
Right.
whether I'm using it as a comfort bowl for just myself or supplementing a meal that I plan to make with it. I think that we'll see a lot of that occur over the next, I think that's where
Yeah.
dining is going,
Dining, yeah, I think you're right. Dining is going to change too. I mean, that's something that we haven't really touched on, is that
No.
there's still a lot of restaurants opening, but what kind of restaurants are they going to be? I think that if you would have asked me 2-3 years ago, even, like, would you consider getting into the takeout, game, or having takeout be such a focus of a restaurant menu, I would have told you no, like with a big NO, because that's not the way I like to eat, and that's not my traditional thoughts around restaurants. But that's who we are now. I think that's who we will continue to be as a society for a long time. So as we talk about, internally, as we talk about concept number 2, there's a really big emphasis on, like, okay, how do we execute takeout? How do we execute to go and offsite kind of service? But not how do we execute it? How do we emphasize it? How do we make it a huger, bigger part instead of being 6 or 10% of revenues? How do we ensure that takeout is at least 20-25% of our revenues? So because I think that's where we're going to be here to stay for a while.
100%. Well, before we get into our speed round,
Sure.
couple of really just fun questions. I don't have anything written down. I'm literally just going to ask you some stuff that I think will be fun to answer. You can tell I'm prepared. I'm a professional. One thing that I want to do from the perspective that I think not a lot of people in town could do is acknowledge you for always being somebody who's totally down. You're a very positive guy. You're always into collaborating. You're into ideation. You're excitable. And that's something that other people can feed off of. Your staff is always amazingly positive to me and treats me very well when I come in to deliver. They're always very receptive. They're always very open. They always ask if they can help. And that's something that trickles down from them feeling like they're taken care of. You can't take care of somebody else until you can take care of yourself. And you see that in these different working environments. You've always been somebody that I would call a friend. And I just want to say, thank you for the work that you're doing in our community. I'm hyped to continue to see what you do. And I think that acknowledgement is very important because, people should support people like you. And I think that's important to say.
Thanks, man. You're going to make me blush. I
All
appreciate
right.
you very much, Matt. Thank you.
100%. All right. Speed round.
Okay.
What is your favorite crispy garnish?
We do a furikake blend. It's furikake and it has extra crispy garlic in it. So it's like, it's everything that I love. It's hot, it's crunchy, it's garlicky and oniony and in your face, and it's got a little bit of nori in there. So delicious.
All right. I have an ode to noodle, which I feel like hasn't been brought up that much. If you had to pick noodles for the rest of your life, would it be ramen or would it be pasta?
Pasta.
With all of the influence you talked about,
yeah,
still pick
I know.
pasta?
I love ramen, but God, I love pasta. I grew up eating a red sauce probably 2 times a week, and I love it.
Okay. What's your fish camp order? So if you were to go to a fish camp eatery, what would you be looking to get?
Softballs. This is I would ask for the smallest bone-in salt and pepper catfish that they have. Baked potato. Of course, you're going to get the hush puppies, and then if you get a trip to the salad bar, always blue cheese, because if you go into the right fish camp with the right salad bar, the blue cheese is probably more cheese than other stuff. So it's like super chunky.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love it. What's obviously, since you've been at home what has been the craziest thing your kids have said since being around them more? Does anything stand out?
No, I mean so my kids, Luke and Ellie are 9 and 5, and Ellie, especially 5 now, is starting to come into her own with her sassiness, and she's almost like she turned 15 instead of 5. So no, I can't say that there's anything that's been too crazy. We've done some, we've had some really, really good times just playing board games and building lots of fires in the backyard and doing s'mores and stuff. God, I'm trying to think. I can't think of anything outrageously crazy right off the top of my head.
Okay, that's fine.
Anyway, we can come back to that. We did. This isn't like necessarily crazy, but it was a lot of fun. For some reason, they saw a picture, the painting of George Washington crossing the Delaware, the famous one where he's like standing up in the boat and stuff. And they decided they wanted to recreate that with stuffed animals, themselves, and their bunk beds. And it was, if you go back and look at my Instagram, it's on there somewhere. It was,
I love it.
and it was like on Easter day. It was like, hey, let's make this picture. I was like, all right, sounds cool.
All right. Oh, that's amazing. What's been one thing that I am interested to hear your answer to? What's been the nicest or most memorable meal that you would say you've experienced?
Ever, like in my life?
Yeah, some standouts.
Okay. So I was able to eat at Prune in New York a couple times before they shut down, and God, I really hope that Gabrielle Hamilton is able to reopen. But the night that I won CHOP, since we've talked about it earlier, I went to Prune by myself. I didn't have family with me. I was solo in New York City. I went to Prune and I ordered, and it's funny because you just talked about fish camp too. So I ordered a bunch of small plates, but one of them was their fried whole sardines with the head, the bones, and everything. And I sat at the bar, the tiny little bar, and these 2 girls were sitting next to me, and I just went for it. I mean, it was like lemon, like mayo, the whole thing, bones and all, just crunching away. And these girls are like, what is he eating? And that was like I was on a high from winning that show, and then the food was cooked like flawlessly, and that was a really special meal. Anytime I've eaten in Prune, it's been a very special meal. Otherwise, I'm also a huge fan of Stagioni here in town, and my wife and I, maybe the first time we ever went there on a date night, the 2 of us sat at the pizza counter, and we ordered like 6 plates, but like one at a time. So like we made ourselves our own little 6-course dinner, and we shared a bottle of the Macedon Pinot Noir, which I still love. That's a great food wine, and it doesn't break the bank. It's like amazing. And we discovered it that night there. So it's become like my favorite go-to food wine, with very fond memories of Stagioni. But sitting there and eating those meatballs that like fell apart as you touched them with a fork, and some perfectly cooked broccoli rabe with chilies and garlic and lots of lemon. And I think we got a broccoli pizza that night. And that was just a really, really special meal too, because you don't get a lot of those date nights in the industry, and when you have 2 kids at home. So it's, that's a really special meal as well. So, and then third, sorry, you can tell I ramble all the time. So
I love it. Keep going.
I would say third would be when I was a kid, and we would spend whole summers at my grandparents' farm in Mississippi, and Mama was the Southern lady that always cooked a big breakfast for everyone when her family was in town. And I remember one day sitting around that table for probably 2 hours for breakfast with my cousins and my brother, and that's just eating like biscuit after biscuit after biscuit with like perfectly crispy bacon and soft scrambled eggs, and the preserves from the figs and the blueberries in her backyard. And yeah, I remember the way that everything smelled, and that's I can still remember it now. I'm getting like goosebumps talking about it.
That's
So
so awesome. Can I tell you a story really quick? One day.
yeah, please.
Back when I was, no, I love it. Back when it's a podcast for you to talk a lot. You're supposed to. We used to vacation at the same beach in New Hampshire every single year. And I don't know what it was, but one day when I walked out of the back of Fern, it was really hot. It was like a July summer. And the Keebler area, or the production cookie company down the street was making cookies while Midwood Smokehouse was doing their Fish Friday. And all of these smells of sweet air, fried dough, and then the fish oceany smell and the heat of the concrete.
Yeah.
And I just started crying. I'm like, why the hell am I crying? It was just and then it took me a second. I'm like, oh, because it smells like every childhood memory I have.
At the beach. Yeah.
So
it's crazy how that happens, man.
Yes, it is. My last question, I'm curious too, if there were, let's say we're in a world where a pandemic doesn't matter and you have a weekend for you and your wife to go out and you can eat anywhere, where would you want to go that you haven't been yet? Let's keep it to America. So hopefully people can get excited about potentially going to these places too, I know we all want to go to Noma. I know we all
right.
back to
I want to
Fox
go.
back when it was
I was gonna say I want to go to Peru and just eat. Okay, in America, I don't know. I've never really spent any time in California, so I would probably hit up LA and do some taco trucks and do some Korean spots in Koreatown, and then I would probably finish off at Angler, which hopefully would still be open at that point. But I would probably do that. I've never done California, so I would probably hit up LA and just roam, just roam around and eat. So.
Walk, eat, walk.
Yeah,
eat.
yeah. I don't have any. I'm not one of the guys who's got a bucket list of every restaurant that he wants to eat. There's only a few, and I think that Angler's right up there. Any of the Momofuku restaurants, but I've eaten at a bunch of them in New York. But Major Domo, it just came to me. Major Domo in LA. Drool and salivate every time I see any of their stuff on Instagram. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Chef. I really appreciate it. And obviously, if you're looking to follow Celebrity Chef Chris Coleman, go on over and follow the Goodyear House on Instagram, Facebook. Follow Chris Coleman's personal page as well, and just continue to support people in the hospitality industry. Obviously, the safest ways in which you feel comfortable with. And thanks for your time today, Chef. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Celebrity Chef Matt Martin.